Hello and welcome to Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name is Jeff and I'm joined as always by my good friend Paul.
Hi, that's me. Hello.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm all right actually. I'm pretty good. Yeah,
good.
It's becoming cold again outside.
It is.
I do feel myself responding to thermal influence from the atmosphere more so than I did when I was younger. That's for sure.
It's just cold. It makes my knees hurt.
Freezing. It's freezing, mate. It's bloody cold out there.
It is freezing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it when it's cold. Makes my bones creak and everything.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be cold for that to happen.
No, it's true. Yeah, everything's creaking there, mate. I tell you. Oh, it ain't good. Oh.
So we're doing this episode as our usual audio-only podcast, but following the crazy success of our video episode, which was our chat with Al Dewar from Character Options and Ed Barnett-Ward from the Affable Company, we've decided that you obviously liked our faces for radio
see more faces.
And wanted to see them more, so we're going to try to do more video podcasts that you can watch on YouTube. So this is our first.
Just don't watch on a big telly. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm
don't.
You
see
don't see
all
my
that
giant face staring at you.
So this is our first kind of normal video one with just the two of us, and this is our Hot Takes Quickfire episode. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been tweeting various things that were questions that we'd been thinking about that we wanted to get other people's thoughts on. So we're going to run through them, and Paul and I are going to put our tuppence worth in as well. So our first one is the sonic screwdriver.
Bum, bum, bum.
I wonder if I add some echo, will that look really weird on video?
No,
I'll have to try that.
Ridiculous.
Probably, yeah.
It probably just sounds stupid.
Yeah. So the sonic screwdriver, should it stay or should it go?
Should it stay or should it go? A bit more dramatic emphasis though, right?
Yeah, that was better than my reading. Is it a vital part of Doctor Who, or has it become an overused magical get-out tool? So let us know your thoughts, we said, and we had a number of comments here from people. So I'm just going to go through
and this is just the sonic screwdriver that we're talking about now. We haven't even started poking the hornet's nest yet. Crikey.
So Blue Bear, who is at Bob Barrows, said, definitely stay. The TARDIS, the stories, target novels on Tom Baker, the things that got me hooked on Doctor Who. Now, Bob, I guess, I love this. I don't know if you saw this one, Paul. Also, who didn't use a tyre pressure gauge as a sonic when growing up in the 70s?
I love that. I saw that one.
And he's put some pictures up. I still have my late father's that I used to use, see with one Sonic. So he's put a couple of pictures there of the Tennant Sonic next to a tyre pressure gauge, which looking at it is quite reminiscent of a Fourth Doctor Sonic. That was brilliant.
I never thought about that when I was a kid in the 70s. I think we're of a similar kind of vintage, and it's but we used to use paintbrushes from school.
Yeah. Okay, that works.
As a Sonic. Why are you shaking your head?
Well, I'm not of a similar vintage.
No, you're not. No.
I'm the next one on, but...
I meant my buddy Blue Bear, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if Blue Bear creaks in the cold.
I don't know, actually. Hopefully not. It's not nice. It ain't nice, is it? You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, it's a good point, actually, because when you've got something to hold that you can see in the show, and you've got a thing similar, you can go around and go... and stuff like that. So there is that aspect of it. Whereas if that is gone, you don't have the prop. Because if you got something out and you went, people say, "What's that?" And like, it's a sonic screwdriver, and you go, "The Doctor doesn't use a sonic screwdriver," which would have been the case had you been growing up in the 80s. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been. So Geek to Me Radio, who is at Geek to Me Radio, said, "Keep it. It's like Batman not having a utility belt," and I said, "Or Spidey with no webs." You know,
their pants will fall down, and that wouldn't be good for any superhero. Can you imagine that? The Doctor waves a Sonic, and he goes, "I haven't got a Sonic," and the pants fall down. That's what we're saying, basically, isn't it? Batman without utility belt.
Get his other Sonic out.
I'm the Batman. Oh, bugger. Stop what you're doing right there, bad guy. Oh, shoot. Oh, Batflex lost his back kecks.
Hey,
Batflex lost his back kecks. The old back kecks have fallen.
That's a word.
You can see the level we're at now already, can't you?
And I wonder if he'd have his face on his back kecks as well. Really?
Of course you do. Who hasn't got Batfleck underpants?
Meta pants.
Oh dear.
So we had one here from Bodhi Bittaker, who's at the Whiplash FX. I love collecting them, so no, I want new ones. That's perfectly reasonable to me. I might find it in a bit, but someone commented that they can't imagine the Sonic stopping now because it's merch.
It's too ingrained. It's merch. Yeah,
and it is too ingrained. Particularly for New Who. The Doctor doesn't have a weapon. And doesn't have, there's no sort of real accessories. There's 13 tried to have a bum bag as a sort of utility belt, but they didn't stick with it. They wouldn't get rid of like the one accessory that you could sell.
No, absolutely.
In life size, with Captain
the economy
America,
would collapse because lost revenue through sales.
We need a Sonic to prevent the recession.
Dow Jones would just vaporise instantly.
Kappa's got his shield and Black Panther his claws and all that kind of stuff. We need
but
it.
As a dramatic device, it can be overused, Jeff. I'm just going to throw that one in there.
Yes, there's one here. That says, hang on. Here comes the Doctor, who's at Doctor_Who871 says, I think they should keep it, but limit the amount of times it's used.
Yeah. I'm with that one. I think that's where I'm at.
So, and then Dan Hill, who's at DanHill209, says keep it, but use it less often, and not use it to resolve the plot.
Definitely that one. Yep.
And then Henry Matterson says it should stay, but have the Doctor go hands-free more like the first, fifth, and seventh Doctors did.
And the sixth.
And then Julia Reichel, hope I've said your name right, Julia. I like it, but it shouldn't be the solution to everything. And then Strew, at Struan_McNeil, it should stay, but be used very sparingly. But if they did ditch it for a while, I'm cool with that. So quite a lot of the comments. I felt this was quite split, really. People
nicely
like
balanced.
it. It was nicely balanced, and I think I kind of agree with the idea of not using it as much because it's used as a very quick kind of narrative sort of get out, which I can understand when you're trying to do a story in a 45-minute window, and it can help move things along, but then there's times when the Sonic has sort of been something that it's not, and I'm thinking primarily of the Rings of Akaton when it turns into some sort of Harry Potter wand, and it's got blasts coming out, and I'll be honest, I liked the look of it, but at the same time I was like, it doesn't do that, but then I'm sort of a bit like, does it matter?
Well, do you know what? Does it matter? That's the thing, right? Because the thing is, if it wasn't the Sonic, there would just be something else to replace it. So the Doctor would kind of mock up a gadget and fire it out, which essentially does the same thing, and it's equally as believable or ridiculous either way. But I always think that actually the fact the Doctor makes these lash ups is part of the fun, and I think we kind of lost that. I can't, I know the 13th Doctor has kind of knocked a few things up and sort of carried these big gadgets around from one place to another, and I love all that stuff. I would much rather that than waving the Sonic.
Fun, 10 made his thing that goes.
He did. He had the thing with 3D goggles and the Bakelite thing in Doomsday.
Pack and,
that's brilliant. I love all that. And it's just as bonkers and just as kind of magic wand-like, if you like, and just as fantastic and ridiculous, but it's a lot of the fun. And I was watching the Two Doctors recently, and in part 2 of that, when Perry and the Doctor are in the space station, and this basically the space station's computer is trying to figure out ways to kill them, so the Doctor has to kind of try and find a way to hotwire it. If there was a Sonic, literally he would point a Sonic and the computer would be instantly doing whatever he wants it to do. But the fact is, he can't do that. So it has to constantly find different ways to try and beat this computer. And the computer is responding by trying to find ways to stop him from doing it. And it changes the environment, it freezes them, it takes the oxygen out, it starts heating things up. And, at one point it has the Doctor kind of hanging over some wires because it's gassed in with stuff. And that, to me, is a lot more fun. And there's the Sixth Doctor working out a panel with a bunch of wires, and he's trying, I need a wire somewhere, I need a filament or something. And he doesn't have it in his pockets. He's got loads of wires, but not the kind of wire that he wants. So what he does is he looks at a sculpture on the desk and finds a little bit of wire on a little bit of filament in the sculpture, uses that. It achieves the same end, but it's just a lot more creative, I think.
And like you get that in Big Finish stuff as well, and you'd be able to get it in a book. But the thing is, I think, like I said, in a 45-minute show, you couldn't do all of that stuff, and also I think audiences these days would. They probably get bored or something like that, even though it would be, showing character and genius.
Surely not. How very dare you suggest such a thing?
Let us know, listeners. What do you think? What would you think seeing that on screen? There's a question here that came in from Danny Co, who's at Danny Co 53848845.
I love numbers on a Twitter handle.
Memorable.
I need some myself.
Yeah, so will Tennant get a new one as 14, or will he be using 13s? Well, in the comic strip in DWM at the moment, he's still using 13s, but I believe in set photos he had something different.
Oh, did he?
So,
I haven't seen those.
Yeah,
sounds exciting.
Because I've seen a few people trying to make custom versions of it. So yes, I think he'll be getting a new one at some point. I wonder if we'll see it happen in the comic. And then just on screen, you'll have a new one.
It'll just be there.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I'm just having a quick look through some of the other replies here. A lot of people, they feel like it's overused, and someone here, Jericho, who's at Jericho's_angel, says, I feel like they should change the form factor for some variety for once, a little bit like you were saying, Paul. Some Sonic trowel or Sonic cane we had.
Sonic sunglasses.
Full time. Yeah, it would be it would refresh the whole thing. A Sonic ring would be cool, and it would keep the Doctor's hands free. Yeah, that would be quite fun. Yeah, the Sonic sunglasses, that was fun.
I enjoyed those.
I
thought they were fun.
Yeah. So this is one for you. Gary Murden 1 says it's overdone, but that's because the 4-part format allowed the plot to move at a more level pace. The Fifth Doctor had his broken to stop lazy writing, and he says, to be fair, a lot of TV has pacing issues. And, I'm not sure whether it's bad pacing. I think audiences today, everything's so quick. It's even film trailers. You get 10 seconds of shots, then it says trailer starts now. For people who can't even watch like a 2-minute trailer, you got 10 seconds to make your mind up whether you want to see a film or not. And I think that it's not lazy writing per se. I think the Sonic is just it's an object that allows a plot to move forward quicker.
But
because we don't have the time for it.
But
now,
it does give the writers something too convenient to rely on, and it's a good thing, because if you've got to write a script in a limited point of time and you just can't figure out how the thing has to be defeated or how something is going to work, it's like, we got the Sonic. That's what it's for. But I think if it's used more sparingly, then it would actually give us as viewers a much better program. To be fair, I do. I just get really bored of watching the Doctor walk into a room and immediately start waving a sonic screwdriver around like it's a bloody tricorder out of Star Trek or something. It never was that. And okay, maybe that's what it's kind of evolved into now. And I know the 13th Doctor, when she makes hers, she says it's a bit of this. It's like a Swiss Army knife, but not a knife, and it does all sorts of things. And, that's okay. And we talked about that in a previous podcast, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But I just think, Doctor Who is not about the sonic screwdriver. Yes, it is part of the show's DNA, and it's part of the Doctor's utility belt, but it shouldn't be used by the writers as a convenient get out, because if it is, I'm just going to get bored watching and I won't watch. You know, it's that simple.
Yeah, it's nice to see the Doctor, you know, be challenged. You know, we have talked about this before, but you know, I really like that 13 made her Sonic.
Yeah. That was good. That was a nice variation on a theme.
Yeah.
And actually, in a way, kind of justified it being able to do all those different things now. You know, she made it so that it can do those things. Yeah.
And like you mentioned earlier, you know, she did make some additional accessories, as did the 10th Doctor and things. So it's nice when they do that, you know. I just found the comment, it was from Martin Havel, who's at Bad Wolf. He said it will never happen, the getting rid of it. It's merged and it shifts.
I think he's probably right, actually.
You know. He's right, I think.
Because as we said, the economy would actually collapse.
Yeah, it would, yeah. And then, Carl Oliger, who's at Dalek of the Supreme, says it's iconic. I'm glad it's around, but if a writer isn't careful, it can feel too much like a magic wand, or literally in the case of Rings of Akaton.
Yeah.
So I'm just quickly scrolling through. Almost all of these comments are, you know, keep it as originally intended, a way to open doors and boxes, says Dan Talks Doctor Who. Everyone likes it, I think, generally, but feel that it's overused.
I love the War Doctor's line in The Day of the Doctors. What does he say? What are you going to do? Build a cabinet? Brilliant. I like that. He's actually quite shocked at how ubiquitous the sonic screwdriver has become for 1011. He's like, well, what is this? It wasn't. I love that fact that he kind of represents the classic series kind of attitude in a way, and looking at these young guys sort of waving their sonics around and being flip with each other and wearing sand shoes and everything.
Sand shoes, yeah. Well, there's a couple of comments here, actually. The 9th Doctor, who's at Doctor_9 Who, said, pretty sure this part in Day of the Doctor is meta-commentary about the overuse of the Sonic and New Who. And that they've put the gif of War Doctor saying, why are you pointing your sonic screwdrivers like that? They're scientific instruments, not water pistols. And then Abel Undercity has put screen grabs of the bit that you were talking about. What are you going to do? Assemble a cabinet?
Assemble a cabinet. Yeah. Brilliant.
So, before we move on to our next hot take, what is your favourite Sonic?
What is my what do you mean?
Like what design?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, next question.
What's your favourite Sonic, Jeff?
13.
Oh, there you go.
I like
Brilliant.
the weird alien look of it. I also liked 12's that monstrous beastly blue thing that he had towards the end that had the rippling lights on it. I thought that was quite cool.
You can probably tell we're both starting to think slightly differently about the sonic screwdriver now. For me, I'm ambivalent. I'm not ambivalent, actually. I would prefer it, I think, to go. If it sticks around in a limited form, that's fine. But you know, I'm not. I don't have an array of Sonics on my back. I'm just, you know.
No, I was going to bring mine in.
That would be amazing. Then you show me, and I could get really jealous of it.
Yeah, it doesn't light up anymore. The batteries run out.
But you know, if I did
have
a whole bunch of Sonics in, it would, you know, and it was important to me to have that. Then definitely, and I can see that viewpoint. You know,
fitting for now. Yeah. So do you want to bring up the Murray Gold one and move on to that?
Why not? Because I mean, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, actually, because Murray Gold.
But the question was,
what?
Should he stay or should he go?
Is that what did I put that? Did I write that?
No, it was basically.
You're ripping off the Clash now.
Oh yes, that's it. The Clash. Yeah. Do you want Murray Gold to come back for the 60th episodes and beyond, or do you want a fresh Sonic landscape, or are you nostalgic for his melodies?
That's okay. Yeah, you wrote that, and then I did a better version somewhere. I think, didn't
Probably.
I? Yeah, because that's what I do. You come up with all the good ideas.
Yeah.
And I think,
and you make them work.
Yeah, I can't remember where it was now.
Well, my view is, if you find that quickly, I'll fill in the dead air time. I like Murray Gold's music. It's very different to Sega Nakanola's recent music. I like both. I feel like Murray's is more kind of traditional music, whereas Atkins is more sort of soundscapes, atmosphere, and ambient kind of music. And when he does have kind of traditional melodies and stuff come in, it's fantastic. I like both of them. I do have a leaning towards Seconds because it sort of echoes classic Who in a way with its kind of electronic stuff, and I'm a big fan of kind of orchestral stuff mixed in with kind of keyboards and things like that, a bit of electronic kind of sound. I would like a new audio wizard going forward. I think if Murray was to come back, the 60th would be fine because he'd be back with Tennant, but I think a new composer would be good for Shooty's era onwards. Otherwise, we've sort of discussed the fears of redoing things, and I think too much of that is too much. Such a thing as there is. U2 once said too much is not enough, but actually
too much is too much.
There can be too much of So that's my view. If he comes back for the 60th, fine.
Yeah. I'd be happy with that.
But I would like to have something new tickle my earbuds after.
Very interesting. You put it that way, Jeff. Yeah, I've found a thing that I put. So I put the sound Murray Gold, the sound of Doctor Who for years and years. Should he return to the show for RTD2? Do you want a fresh sonic landscape, or are you nostalgic for the return of Murray's marvellous musical melodies? I put a bit of alliteration into it, see that?
Yeah. Stan Lee would be proud.
Very proud of him, mate. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I've got a kind of a love-hate relationship with Murray Gold's music. On the one hand, I love it because the technical skill involved and the sound of it, the loudness, the sheer volume and impressive orchestral weight. The wall of sound is really something, and there are so many clever things going on in those melodies as things that exist on their own. They are fabulous to listen to. I've got most of Murray Gold's albums, and I listen to them in the car when I'm driving, and I just relive all those wonderful moments that they instantly evoke. But I have to admit, when I'm actually watching them on TV, I found them a little bit intrusive. And I remember, when Rose first came out in 2005, a whole bunch of tabloids were saying the music's too loud. They were trying to pick out things that they didn't like about this new revamped Doctor Who. Everyone thinks, Christopher Eccleston's great. Billy Piper, some liked, some didn't, but the music was always, it's too loud. And I thought, it's not really too loud, it's just part of it, and it's joyous, and it's bringing everything to life, and it's just, and it gives the show an identity and a character that nothing else on TV has. It's a triumphant kind of sound, it's look at us, we're back, and we're big, and we're bold, and we're brilliant, and it was fantastic. But now when I go back and listen to it, I think, they're too loud. I find it a little bit too intrusive, because it's like, it doesn't always quite reflect what I'm feeling about that part of the programme. And what were we watching recently, Jeff? The Runway Bride, which has got some brilliant scores in it, some really fabulous tracks. And again, I think on their own, they're fantastic. But do you know what? It's like, the bit towards the end when they're having the face off against the Arachnos Queen, and it starts getting quite dark, and we go into some really nice strings, but they just, to me, and it is literally just my opinion and my own reaction to it, to me it just felt far too intrusive for that moment. And the thing is, now when I watch a lot of those slightly older new series Doctor Who tunes, Doctor Who stories, I think it annoys me more than it pleases me. So I think I've kind of maybe maybe kind of being pulled away from Murray Gold a little bit. And the other thing as well is it's almost like Dudley Simpson in the 70s, right? So Dudley Simpson, it got to a point where he scored pretty much every episode of Doctor Who. And because of that, like Murray Gold, he kind of became the sound of it and part of the identity of it. So when it changed in Series 18 to much more synthesized and kind of synthesized flutes and guitars, electric guitars and things like that, it sounded very strange, and it changed the character of Doctor Who. It literally felt like you're watching a different show. And I think that also happened with the transition between Murray Gold and Segun Akinola. For years, Murray Gold had been part of the DNA. That sound, that whole acoustic vibe and character that came from that, you pull that out and it feels like a different show, and it's quite a wrench. To suddenly find yourself filled by atmospheric blurbs and ambient sounds, which I loved, but even for me, it felt, whoa, this is different, and I would rather than say it should be this or should be that, I would love Murray Gold to return for sure. I would love Segun Akinola to return, but more than that, I would love it if they experimented with different people on different stories. So they find somebody who is a great fit for this kind of story, and maybe it's Murray Gold again. Maybe maybe the story is bold and brilliant and joyous, and it actually benefits from those kind of wonderful scores that he did, or maybe it's a bit more moody and atmospheric. Maybe it is a bit more Segun Akinola, a bit more like The Woman Who Fell to Earth, that kind of thing, or more haunting like the Ghost Monument, or maybe it's something completely different. And like you said, we have a brand new talent coming through. Maybe it could be a sort of gestation pool for all kinds of different people working in the industry. I would love that, because again, in the 80s, we had different people scoring different stories, and it gave each story its own character.
Identity. I thought the same thing when I watched Runaway Bride recently for a podcast that we did before Christmas. It's great music, but it was really loud, and often it's kind of telling you
exactly that.
What you should feel.
And I hate being told what to do, Jeff, and what to feel and what.
I know. Shut up. Yeah, but I will say that. Murray gave us a banger of a theme for the 11th Doctor.
That is my favourite, actually. I do like... maybe the 12th, actually, thinking about it.
The 12th Doctor's one, that sort of electronic feel to it, was so good. And I went to see... what do they call it? The Monsters show, something like that, which was the Matt Smith show that was... a live production where the monsters came out into the
there was
audience
also the proms, wasn't there? Doctor Who at the proms, which I love.
It was a bit like that, where they have the people in the suits coming out and stuff, and it had a story with I can't remember who was playing him, but he was capturing the Doctor and creatures, and he had them on stage and stuff, and Matt Smith had done some video elements for it. Anyway, it was the first night of the show of the tour at Wembley Arena, and we were held up in terrible traffic, and we were going to be late for it, and Wembley actually delayed the start of the show because so many people were late, and we were running in and sitting down, and then like curtains up, But Matt Smith was actually there on that first night, and he stood up and he did this to and everyone cheered and stuff. So that was really nice. And then I went to see the equivalent with the 12th Doctor era, and Murray Gold was conducting, I think. And it was an orchestra, and they showed clips on the screen, and the monsters came out. There was no kind of story element to it this time. And the feel of is it called "Am I a Good Man"? His theme being played live was
quite
absolutely
shivers
fantastic.
down the spine kind of thing.
Brilliant. Yeah. So shame they didn't do one for Segun's music, but we got live. We got events instead. So that was cool. So one of our other questions was River Song. Yes or no? Do you like the Doctor's wife? Did she start out as a great character or overstay her welcome? Or did you love the exploration of her timeline? Did you like the catchphrases? So, Lauren, who's at Gallifreyan, says, I love River, both in the show and her extended universe appearances. She's definitely one of my favourite DW characters, and I love the group dynamic she has with the Doctor, Amy and Rory. Cynical Archivist, who's at Calidus Dominus, says, she's an interesting character and a superb concept, but unfortunately, at times, she fell into sexist tropes. I have mixed thoughts, iconic as she is. Well, still plenty to enjoy. Rossio, who's at Riversong_11DW. Now that username might give you some idea here. Totally yes. She was the first character in Doctor Who that caught my attention. I love her. I think her lines are great. Alex did a perfect job playing her. Although I would have liked us to have more details about her relationship with the Doctor. Shaken Not Stirred, who's at Shayak, says there's no such thing as too much with a song. She's a favourite, and I'm sorry she did not appear with the Last Doctor. By Riker's Beard, the Beard of Riker. Just about perfect. Punished Star Wars fan, who's at Punished Jake 2, says I don't think she overstayed her welcome, but I don't think she should come back. Let some characters remain in the era so that era stays special. Personally, I don't think bringing Donna back is necessary either. Yeah, I think keeping people in their era is good, because then it's, like he says, it's special to them.
Yeah, maybe, but then if that was the case, we wouldn't have had Sarah Jane back in the new series, would we?
Yeah, I was going to say, but not everyone, I think. For me, River is so tied to 11, and although she appeared with 12
and 10,
and 10 as well, yeah, but she it felt so intrinsic with 11, and yeah, I suppose I'll contradict myself. It would have been fun to see her with 13. That would have been fireworks, wouldn't it? But yeah, I'm kind of all right that she hasn't come back. My view on her. She started out brilliant in Silence in the Library. Absolutely, love the mystery. I thought she was brilliant. I kind of like that sort of flirty, kind of saucy, outrageous kind of confidence and everything. But I'll be honest, as she went through in Series 6 and 5, 6, 7, I found her I didn't like her. I felt that Hello Sweetie and spoilers and all of that started to get a bit overused, and I felt that she was kind of just a bit annoying. It's kind of rare that I find a character annoying, but she just wasn't my favourite. But then when they did was it the Husbands of River Song where she was with Capaldi, I thought she was brilliant again, and I just felt like there was a bit more done with her in that one, and it was when they're standing there watching the Towers of Beryllium or whatever, it was really lovely and quite moving, and I felt like that's it. It felt more like how I felt when she was in Silence in the Library, and whereas in the interim, it was just a lot of the same stuff, and I wasn't a big fan.
I'm a similar mind of you, actually, Jeff. The Silence in the Library is one of my all-time favourite Doctor Who stories of ever. It is definitely brilliant. And actually, Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, which is the next story we see her in, right? With the first one with Matt Smith.
Yeah, that's
another banger. Yeah, and she's great in that as well, because we don't know who she is at that point. Still, right?
And I think at that point I was like, oh yeah, it's great. She's back. She's fun. But then, like I said,
and we don't know if she's a good person or a bad person, right? We don't know what her motives are. And she's definitely, she's definitely someone who's driving a part of the plot, but it's not a part that the Doctor is necessarily aware of, or you know what I mean. It could be working in tandem, or it could be working against. And there's that edge that keeps me watching it as it develops.
And it was fun that they were going in different directions for their timeline.
That was good. It was a nice thing when we first saw it.
Yeah, I liked all of that, just didn't kind of work in that middle. There's a couple of comments here I'd just like to read quickly. Big Finish Listener, who's at Listener Big, says one of my faves, Camp Goddess.
Brilliant.
Mr. Brad Preston says she had the most chemistry with Capaldi.
Oh, interesting.
That is interesting, because I really liked them together, and I didn't dislike her with Matt, but it just always felt a bit there was an age gap, and it just was a bit like on screen.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Actually, I never really thought about that. I kind of think there's a point in the 11th Doctor's timeline or stories, whatever, where it just seemed to be always about River Song. What is it?
Yeah.
When we see Mel's come into things. What's that?
Yeah,
is that series 5, series 6?
That's series 6 at the opening, isn't it? With
and we get all
the silence, and then
we get let's kill Hitler. And
good man goes to war, and that was it. I think it was series 6. It exactly like you said. It felt more like her.
It's about
story, and actually, I remember at the time feeling like it's the River Song show at the moment,
which is great if you like River Song.
Which is great. Whereas, and on the flip side of that, when it was the Clara show with Capaldi, I didn't mind that.
No, I didn't like that
because I liked Clara, whereas you didn't like that. And there's I was going to say with River, sometimes when you're watching things, you think I can't believe those two people together. Like I never really bought Rory and Amy into it. Rory and Amy, he's a wet fish and she's a.
See, I do buy into that totally because I love.
Yeah, you said before you did.
This is what sparks the interesting debate between us, Mr. Jeff.
It is, yeah. And I'm objectively right about that. She would never go for a guy like that. But River and the Doctor, it just was a bit, I'm not saying an older woman or an older man can't,
But the Doctor is thousands of years old.
So narratively it's okay. But if it was a younger woman and an older man, and in the the roles were reversed, I don't know if it would be looked on so favourably. But anyway, I'm going to move on from that.
Can I just
Metal
say?
Whovian,
oh yes, go on, yeah.
Yes. James, the Metal Whovian, says she's one of my all-time favourite characters, and I love her series, The Diary of River Song. And there were a few tweets from people talking about that Big Finish series and how they really enjoyed those
brilliant
additional ones. I just want to read one here. This is Shah, who's at Raznokchincy. I've probably said that wrong. I'm really sorry. Yes, her catchphrase is my text tone for my husband.
Oh, brilliant.
Which I really like. I wish she had one or two more episodes of 12, but the one we got was
a good one. Yeah, it was. I think the worst part of River Song actually was the name of the Doctor, I think, when she literally appears just to tell everybody about the plot. I think she spends a good 20-25 minutes of that episode just explaining things, admittedly running very quickly and very dramatically with everything going on from one place to another, but she is literally bang bang bang, and that's no disservice to Alex Kingston.
She's always
she's
really
fabulous.
good, even
she's absolutely brilliant with it, and there are some genuine moments even in that story where she just you just can't take your eyes off her, and you just it's generally surprising, but for the most part in that story particularly, she's just there to serve the plot and literally serve it, dish it up, tell us and tell the other guys what's going on, and it's just and I didn't personally enjoy that at all, and I think that's not what we that's not what I signed up for, if you know what I mean. That's my take on it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to end with two tweets. Our friend Camille Mackenzie, who's at Cowboy Create, says, my favourite character of all time. And Josh UR, who's at just_joshing_92, says, best character ever. It's great. People love it, and I think that's brilliant. And I don't dislike the character, but I don't like some of the stuff, some of the appearances. I think it was a bit overdone after a while, but that's just me.
That's just him.
So, our next question.
Yes, what was the next one?
Who or what, I think you corrected me on that, what is the best villain in all of Doctor Who? Daleks is an obvious answer, so let's hear your other favourites. Big names or obscure names. We want to know who or what you think is the best villain the Doctor has ever faced.
I changed that as well for my Facebook channel.
You did change that, yeah. So I'm just going to go with a couple here. This is more really about what other people think. I think so. Doctor Hugh, who's at Doctor Hugh.
Dr. Hugh.
He says the Ravagers from Sam Spruill, Matthew Needham, Richard Sandals, amazing performances to their incredible power, nihilistic philosophies. I love their appearances in Flux, and I hope they return soon. And also the passenger form with them, John O'Mathers, was brilliant. I really like Swarm and Azure. I think the design on them is brilliant. I liked the, kind of sort of slightly camp kind of evil, but there was a sort of sadism and an intelligence to them. And we've talked to Sam Spruill and John O'Mathers on the podcast before, and I really liked what Sam did with his part, and Jono, even though he was silent, was an intimidating presence, and he's a great guy as well. There's been a few people I've seen saying, they felt that they kind of didn't go anywhere in the end, and yes, there's an element that they sort of slightly fizzled out a little bit, but and I hate to sort of try to defend stuff, but I think Flux had a lot of COVID issues, and I think that there may have been a bigger intention for them. In fact, we know from talking to Jono that it was going to be 8 episodes initially, wasn't it? As the original press release about the series said. Then it became 6, and it's kind of clear to me that they had to condense stuff and abandon some stuff, and one day maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean they're still there, aren't they? They're still there in the
Doctor
Who universe.
They're absolutely brilliant.
The Rogues Gallery.
Even if the end doesn't quite kind of
you say
be
that
what it could be. They still have an end, and it still works.
I
think it just could have been a bit.
Yeah,
bigger,
I really like that. I get where all the criticisms for that are coming from, and I can totally see the point. But personally, I love it. And the last words, right, is it Azure who says it? Ascension. She wants to be, uplifted into whatever the time thing does to her, and the idea of and Swarm is a little bit cheesed off with it because he's got so much more to give, I think, but nonetheless he accepts it with open arms, to be reabsorbed into whatever constituent it is or whatever environment it is in which those elements exist. They're not. They're not really physical beings. They have physical presence in the show. They're given it. They are ageless. They're eternal. They're part of whatever time is now. And what I really liked about that whole thread in Flux is that time is presented as almost like as an entity. I was going to say malevolent entity in the way that it is in Sapphire and Steel. There is a little bit to that. But it's an entity nonetheless. It's a thing that is not fully understood, not fully explored, and interacts with the the physical universe in ways that the Doctor and the Time Lords can, it allows them kind of movement through back. But the fact they have to have the Maori in place to kind of, stop it devolving into chaos and to stop it actually taking control, and so I loved that aspect of it.
All of that was so good. It was such a massive concept.
And that's the thing. It's like it didn't answer everything, but personally, I wouldn't want it to. And it's the same with that ending. With old time coming back in and kind of in a way actually doing what I've been saying the Sonic Screwdriver does, literally kind of clicking his fingers and the bad guys disappear. And I totally get that, and but what I prefer more is the idea that these things are not destroyed. They've been almost like brought back into their environment, and they're there to do damage to the Doctor in the future if anybody wants to do it.
If that was to happen, I didn't dislike that at all. It just, if the plan had, I'm saying that like I know, but on the assumption that there would have been more time. A bit more.
But then we might have had explanations, and I'd rather not
I don't know
have any
whether
explanations.
Chibs would have done that. I think it might have just been made a bit clearer.
You're probably right, actually. Chibs doesn't always close off his villains. I think he leaves them kind of. They're never dealt with in any sort of fine. Well, I think they are sometimes. Well, I don't know. Actually, I'm trying to think now. I'm thinking of myself on the spot.
But not having a full stop on everything isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not. Do you know? Because the Master pretty much always has a full stop on in his interaction with the Doctor, right? Always, taken away or arrested by unit or killed, seemingly killed, and then only to magically resurface a few stories later down the year or next year or something.
Yeah.
And
wait, that's our next question.
Oh, it is, yeah. So we'll get onto that. I won't do that now. Then, okay. I like open endings. Let's leave it at that then.
Yeah, remember that. So Gary Pryke, the Banzai Kid, says, I've always loved the Autons.
Oh, yeah.
Since before I'd even seen the only existing Auton stories at the time. Such a great idea, and Spearhead and then Terror took the idea so much further. I was so happy when the show came back and they were the first villains.
Me too.
Yeah, I like that too, because it was a new... It
was a good link to the past.
New start for the show. Exactly. But it was saying to classic fans...
Don't be afraid.
We haven't... It's still the same show. We haven't forgotten the past. Even though it was kind of those things are drip fed, throughout, but it made quite a bold statement, I think, Alex Storer at The Light Dreams says, after the Daleks and Davros, I love Davros, I think he's brilliant, probably the Master, and then he says, for me, Ainley, the Black Guardian and the Vale Yard probably rank as some of the best too. I always had a soft spot for the Sontarans, the Tractators,
Tractators, as Turlo puts it.
The Tractator! And there's so many, you can't answer this, he says. So I'm just going to scroll through quickly. Sandra B, who's at Chip Rocky, says the Weeping Angels are terrifying.
Yeah, we've got a few of them on Facebook, a few Weeping Angels.
Yeah, few there. And I would second that. And I actually said to Sandra, especially in real life, in Time Fracture. So if anyone else listening, watching, did Time Fracture, you'll know that there's a bit where you go into you go out through a door and you come into a corridor, and it's really cold. And it's quite dark, and then you realise, I think it's somehow you see the Weeping Angels are here, or something's written on the wall. There's all this like tarpaulin type plastic see-through sheet materials, gauze type stuff hanging from the ceiling. And then suddenly the lights flicker and they go out, and then you turn around and the angels have appeared like behind you. And like, even though it's actors, because I can see that the mask is
did
slightly,
you do a toilet?
But my utility belt failed and my trousers fell down. You still kind of go, oh shit, and the lights go out, and then in that split second when they go back on, they've moved again, and they're getting close to you, and the whole time with Time Fracture and anything where they like interact with you, I can't help kind of laugh, because they're a bit like, oh my god, it's really scary, it's a Weeping Angel right in front of me, but it's really cool at the same time. And then they start to chase you, and the lights are going off, and they're like,
that's pretty cool.
Doing all this, and you run down, like moving this stuff out of the way, and you get out, and it was absolutely brilliantly done.
Well done, the Time Fracture people.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Eddie, Lord President of the High Council at LPOTHC, says Sutek the Destroyer. Now that is a villain who needs a new Who return. And I said actually there's some comic books with the 10th Doctor in where he returns.
10th Doctor, yeah?
A couple of... Yeah.
Surprise.
So there was a few comments like Andre, who's at Prydonian 06, Cyberman, like in the body horror, a couple of people for the Silence. I love the Silence. I like the design of like the Scream and the suit, like the Men in Black in the 60s and all of that kind of stuff. I felt that they started that the concept of them is brilliant, but I felt by the end of Series 6, when they were sort of just essentially bodyguard type things for the Silence, which was the religious order, I was a bit like,
to be honest, I don't think I even followed it at that point. I'd lost all kind of, or given up on any attempt to make sense of any of that timeline at all. It's just give me the episode as it is. I don't care anymore.
They became not great.
I love the episodes. Don't get me wrong. It's just the whole convolutions of the timeline.
Sorry, I just meant the
Silence.
I liked.
I
liked that they were this sort of
to be fair,
they'd taken over Earth.
Yeah, that happens a lot in Doctor Who, though, where we have a really great monster, and it's great for its first 1, maybe 2 stories, and then afterwards can get reused as just a bit of a foot soldier come presence.
Yeah, that's what happened with them. Really, they were made good again. So to speak.
They were made good again.
In a Big Finish unit series called Silenced, where they were sort of living in a house. And stuff.
Okay, that's interesting.
It was really good. Looking at all these comments here, Matt Stanhope, who's at Matt Stanhope 17, says, "I'm torn between the Zygons and the Weeping Angels." No, the Crinoid. He says. Ashad, TARDIS Treasures, like Ashad. Jason Marshall, who's at Jason M25870, says, "Did someone mention Sontarans?" And he's put a fantastic picture there of a signed Sontaran, a picture that was one of the actors from Flux. The Sontarans were great in Flux, weren't they? They were sort of
back to what I liked. About them,
playing
actually.
up the war angle, but I also love chocolate.
No, I know you do like that.
Yes,
indeed.
I did like that. That was great fun. Yeah. So very quickly, give me your top 3 villains.
My top 3 villains. I can't do that quickly. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to go for the Silence.
Okay.
I'm going to go for the Weeping Angels. And I'm going to go for... oh God, I like the Zygons because I like the Suckers. Cool.
Suckers are good. I mean,
but I like the Skithra as well. I like the Skithra's design.
She's good. Yeah, I
also like the Mighty Pating. Someone did comment on the Mighty Pating.
You're right.
You can't forget that little bastard. Yeah.
Okay, so my top 3, I'm not sure about top 3, but when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Sontarans. I'd never actually seen them in the series because the Sontaran experiment was a little bit before my time, and obviously I don't recall ever it being repeated, but obviously growing up on the Target books, I'd read the adventures they were in, so I read the Sontaran experiment, which is vicious, the Time Warrior, where they first appeared, the Invasion of Time, which I did actually kind of half recall, I think. So the first time I actually saw them on TV was watching the 2 Doctors, and I remember being really excited when the Sontaran scout ships are kind of Sontaran attack craft are first identified, and it's known that their intention is hostile. And I used to write little fanfic stories about Sontarans just outside of Doctor Who and try to figure out, how they could have been developed. I used to think of them as a kind of actually like a bioweapon almost. They've been created by somebody to fight the Rutans, but that the original creators have been kind of either destroyed or lost to the mist of time, and all they had left was this kind of self-perpetuating army of clones that had just been left with a simple function to fight and survive and grow, because it had to do that, and just because that's the only thing that Sontarans understand is that's what they're bred for, that's what they're developed for. So I used to write a few little things about that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. Some of
we're talking about it's a great idea. I'm gonna write that.
Really
there's a story waiting to be told.
You see like the Dalek ship and stuff, and I think, how have they built all that? They've only got suckers and claws.
They use slave labour, slave races.
They must have minions. Yeah,
they do. This is why when you watch a Terry Nation script, a Terry Nation Dalek script, there's always a bunch of humans carrying big blocks of masonry from one place to another, in living day to day in fear of radiation fallout.
Yes, you do see that.
Fallout.
But you don't see that in the new series.
No, but we need that back. We need those rows of humans carrying blocks of concrete through a quarry.
What I want to see, marching, quick step together for unnamed jobs.
We did have some good ones on our Facebook, actually. I just want to bring some of these guys in because there was a lot coming through, actually.
Yeah, Facebook followers, you're growing.
You are, and we love you for it. But one we haven't, I'm just going to pull...
In numbers, not size.
I'm just going to pull this one out from Stanislav Stanley Migra, who says, I think this is brilliant, actually, "I really loved War Chief from War Games. Still kind of feel that War Chief and the Master should be the same person, even if it's not. absolutely love that series, by which I mean the War Games. I think it's probably the best final series for any Doctor, but I'm too much of a second Doctor fanboy, so I might not see things clear they finish off with, which I thought was great. And we had a little bit of a chat about Tobias Vaughan and the invasion and stuff like that. But you know what? Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, yeah, people, these one-off villains. There's a lot of really good ones on there. I'm a big fan of the War Chief as well. I think we might have seen him in a Terrance Dicks novel, an Eighth Doctor novel, or something thereafter. I'm not sure. And maybe a Big Finish, I think. Possibly. I'm not an expert on that. But there was a few. And we had a lot of people for the Weeping Angels. And someone pointed out they could only see 3 pictures out of our 4. Which
because one was a silent.
Yeah, I see what we did. We had a bit of a laugh with that one.
Very good.
Sorry, what was that other one you said? What was it again? I can't remember. We had.
What are we talking about?
We had a lot of fun, but yeah, lots for the Daleks, for the Davros. There's someone here has put the Master as seen in the Deadly Assassin, which is a pretty good old Crispy, Tom Baker's. Master. There we go. Yeah, so that would be quite good. Magnus Greel, Sutek, brilliant. Lots of those. Yeah, loads of villains. Great. That's the great thing about Doctor. We love the monsters. We love the villains.
Yeah, it's nice seeing the classics popping up in these sort of lists, but also the non-classics, the ones who don't appear all the time, and are not kind of the big 3 or 4 that we get. So that kind of leads us on to the next question.
Yes, it does.
That we did, which was Sacha Master. Is he before or after Missy?
Right.
And I said, you tell us and back it up with your reasoning why. Now, I'll be honest, this was a bit mad, one, because
you poked a hole in the hornet's nest there, mate.
I did here, because there's sort of official confirmation that he's after, which I believe is in an annual, maybe. I mean, everyone can have their own headcanon. I kind of view if it's not stated in the show, it's not clear. Some people kind of rightly or justifiably, I guess, feel that if Sacha comes after Missy, it undoes all of Missy's character arc. Yes, I suppose it literally does, but I think it was inevitable that the Master would have returned, and the Master is a naughty boy or girl, and to think that the Master would have returned, continuing the Missy arc, particularly in the way that Who is done with. Essentially new showrunner, new era, and this
new management moving in. Yeah.
Repeated that they want to make their own mark on it, as is their right as showrunner. I think it's unlikely that the Master would have come back and been, goody sort of thing. But also, like I was talking about the 11 from the Big Finish audios, who's played by Mark Bonner, and the 11 is a genius creation for anyone who hasn't encountered him. He's a Time Lord with, I think they call it, cognitive dissonance, where each previous incarnation is active in the head, and he kind of switches to them for short periods of time. And there is a good version in there, one who tried hard to be good and was kind of actively working against the previous versions. One of them's a kleptomaniac, one of them's an absolute psycho, one of them's like, really horrible and rude, and but it's just brilliant. So we never saw Missy regenerate. Yep, get it. That's fine. I just think it was obvious that it would have come back. We saw John Sims' Master, die, get burned and whatever. But there was a magic decoder ring that brought him back in some sort of witchcraft ceremony and gobbledygook. That's fine. So just because we saw Missy die, what happened before Sacha's Master turn up? How do we know he didn't come back via magic decoder ring again,
or something?
So, something. So for me, I suspect he probably was after, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't bother me that Missy's stuff was absolutely brilliant. It doesn't undermine any of that. I think it's like I said, it's not likely that the show would have carried on. And the character arcs end in an era. They don't really kind of move forward.
Yeah, they rarely move forward. I think rarely so, even in the old days.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go through all these comments. There's lots of them. Thank you to everyone who commented. Mike Baldock at Vote Mike Baldock said concurrent. They are alternative versions of the same regeneration, which is
that's an interesting one.
idea.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can't cross your own timelines and stuff. But the idea that it's they're from different points and they're still out there and stuff is cool. So yeah, some people were like, yeah, it's after. Some people were before. Some people were quite annoyed that Sacha's Master could have been after. But yeah, I think it's an individual thing. So. There's no definitive answer. We may well have seen an official confirmation in an annual. Well, there was possibly mention of somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it's kind of up to you as the viewer.
Yeah, I think that's my take on it, to be honest. Yeah.
So he's brilliant. No, she's brilliant. So that also leads into this next question, which is which showrunner?
Wait! I didn't answer that. You didn't ask me my opinion on it.
Sorry.
I just said I agreed with you up to that point. You didn't ask me whether I thought she was before or after, but.
What's your view?
I'm not really bothered, to be honest. Yeah. Like I said a few minutes ago, it's like the Master always dies at the end of every encounter with the Doctor, in the old days, and always popped up again, a bit like a pantomime villain. We never saw Roger Delgado's Master regenerate. We didn't need to. We saw what happened to old Crispy in The Keeper of Traken, stealing the body of Treemass. We saw what happened to in the TV movie, the Master getting disintegrated, and suddenly, for some reason, becoming an amorphous kind of blobby snake CGI thing that went into Bruce's mouth and consumed his body, and then the Master's back as Derek Jacobi, having been, I don't know, somehow integrated into the Time War. Do you know what?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? He's going to come back.
He's going to come back. He or she's going to come back, and I get the whole Missy thing. I did like what was attempted with her through that season 10 arc. Because she did start season 9, I think, really, really nasty, and as I went through it, maybe the Doctor was starting to actually get to her because he'd kept her locked up for so long. But in my head, I can reconcile it because that spaceship was still there, right? That big cyber spaceship on the edge of a black hole. Who knows what the Master had to do to get out of that and what they went through. And how many regenerations or whatever they might have had to endure, or how many ways of stealing somebody else's life to get through it. And when we see the Sacha Master in 13's era, he's totally deranged, and that's, I can headcanon it through that if I like, but I don't feel the need to, actually, personally. It's just the Master's always going to be better.
The Master's, it's inevitable, and, to with respect, to think that it was going to finish with Missy, that's not going to happen. And people justifiably love Missy's arcs, great, but I don't think any showrunner after would have gone, well, that's how it ended. I'm not going to do that, because they want their crack at the classics, the big villains and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, there might have been a story to be told where Missy is kind of pushed over the edge, perhaps, so she's really, I mean, but then I think the Doctor Falls kind of does that, to be fair, because I think that moment where she kills her early self, or kills the John Sim Master and he kills her, and she ends by laughing at it, is almost like a sort of acceptance that whatever she thought, or whatever she thought she might achieve with the Doctor on her side, was never going to happen. She's not that person.
No.
This person in the lift who just shot her, who she's just shot, that's who she is. And I think...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that stuff there showed that, the Master may have tried to be good, but it's not.
I don't even think she tried to be honest. I think she seemed a bit half-hearted about the whole trying to be good thing.
Yeah.
And who knows? It was her... It was her piloting of the TARDIS that brought it to that spaceship on the edge of the black hole. So, who knows what might have been happening, even if it was just a subconscious thing.
Yeah. So the other question was, which showrunner out of the three New Who wrote which major villain the best in your opinion, Dalek, Cybermen?
Oh, this one. So this was, if the last question prodded the hornet's nest, this one drove a truck through it.
So let me just so this had 182,000 views. There was 536 likes, 204 quote tweets, 32 reads. I can't see.
I don't know what you were thinking
of,
Jeff. Really asking these questions, man.
Well, actually,
I didn't do that one on Facebook. I left that one off. No, I'm not going there.
This might have been an idea from our friend Cooper Hillier.
Yeah, he's got lots to answer for.
So thanks for that, Coop. But no, we asked these questions because we wanted to.
I just wanted to know, really, don't we? You know, there's no
we wanted to know what people think, and there's no kind of malice or anything intended with it, and we'll talk about it, but replies and stuff don't always go the way you kind of think they will. But this was to see. It's asking questions. It's and we wanted to increase our reach and people's awareness of us, and that worked. So
I mean, these are topics that are often rising up in
yes.
on social media in fan circles, right? And we just thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of pull it all in, for better or worse, and just kind of get a sort of litmus test on where people are on this, because it's a question. We could all be sitting around in a pub asking ourselves, so go on then, mate, who do you think did the Daleks best then? Because I think it was Russell. No, it's quite clearly Stephen Moffat. No, it was Chris Chibnall who was the best one. He did all of them. And no, you're wrong, mate. No, Russell was the best. We'd do that around the pub. So we thought, let's do it on social.
Looking at the answers here, which I'll come to in a sec, it's all individual opinion, and I think so much of it is what your personal taste is. There is no right or wrong. So some people here feel that Moffat wrote the Master best because they love Missy so much, and they like what he did with her. They like that demented, they like the demented.
And they like that story. They love Missy as a character, and I can't imagine any of the others would have done that with the Master.
No,
so
because it just felt a very Moffat thing to do. Where some people
and he did it really well.
liked.
I love Missy. I think she's fantastic. The first time we'd really seen a different take on the Master, I think.
Yes. And that's why partly why it works so well, and then other people really like the kind of maniacal John Sim Master, the RTD
the big jumper, jump over tall buildings in a single bound.
Hungry, hungry.
I kind of like that as well, though, to be honest.
It's silly, it's fun, and the Master, particularly like with Sacha's Master, there's an element of kind of glee and sort of mania in what they're doing.
He is chaos. I think the John Sim Master exists purely for chaos, like even disrupting Missy's timeline. Really, in the Doctor Falls, it's he that's himself that he's doing it to, and he gets so much fun out of doing it.
Yeah, he does.
Just because
and
he
I
can.
remember the end of time storyline where he creates the Master race.
Exactly.
It's so stupid,
it's bonkers, but
it's brilliant at the same
time.
And poor old John Sim had to dress it up in all those different outfits for that shot in the room.
Tabloids gone to that.
It just
everywhere. John Sim in a dress. They loved it.
Yeah, and it was just brilliant fun. So there was massive comments here from people. My summarisation was that generally people really liked RTD's Daleks, and there was also quite a lot of love for Chibnall's Daleks, the way he kind of had the lone junkyard Dalek and made it terrifying. People kind of, I would say, leaned towards Moffat's Missy as the sort of favourite Master incarnation. Cybermen was, to be honest, I felt kind of going towards Chibnall, particularly with the Shad. People felt that RTD did some really good stuff. There was quite a lot of love for Age of Steel in there, but Moffat's were sort of silver Iron Men that kind of floated around a bit, and then people threw in some bonuses like the Weeping Angels, and giving kudos to Moffat for those, and the Silence, and Chibnall's handling of the Sontarans as well, so it was a sort of that's my takeaway from it all. And there was, some people only really liked RTD's versions and stuff. Some people liked Moffat's versions. But reading through the, the responses and people's kind of thinking behind stuff and why they liked certain, iterations of these classic characters was really interesting. And then there was a couple of people who threw in classic Who names, and I was quite surprised to see some people say they didn't think any of the new Who showrunners handled any of the villains well.
Interesting.
Which really surprised me.
And I didn't see any much on the Autons. Did anybody pick the Autons and the Nesting out? Given that they were the first in in Rose.
Because this was asking.
Oh yeah. Between the showrunners. Good point.
The major villains. So there wasn't any of those. Yeah. What's your who do you feel wrote each of the big villains best?
Well, now you're asking me there, Jeff. Now let me tell you something.
Asking you there.
Right. Okay. So I think it's an entirely personal thing, and it's whatever you prefer your monster to be. Right. Here's my thinking behind it. So the Daleks. My thinking is, Russell wrote them as kind of he just had a lot of fun with them. Russell wrote the Daleks as the Daleks were when I was a kid, I think. Just great, just literally flying through the skies, going through the streets in their flying saucers and blasting, exterminating everything. They were just, and I know that Dalek, that standalone Dalek story is in Russell T.D.'s era, but I give that to Rob Sherman because he wrote the original story on which it was based, and he wrote that script. And Russell kind of developed it alongside him, but the credit for that particular type of Dalek goes to Rob Sherman, and I think it's astonishingly good. I'm not a big fan of the Daleks as just kind of I don't. This whole thing about them flying around in Doomsday fighting the Cybermen, I didn't like that at all. But if I was 10 at the time, I probably would have loved it. Yeah. But it's not what I wanted as an adult. But that's fine. I just didn't enjoy it.
And sorry, just to interrupt. That's an important thing to remember, that this show appeals to such a wide audience.
Oh, totally.
It must be impossible for the showrunners
to please everybody.
Because RTD probably understands.
He has actually been called RTD now, isn't he? We don't call him Russell anymore.
No,
he is called RTD.
He is RTD.
Yeah.
But he knew that the show kind of was aiming and targeting
and it totally
kids
needed
as well.
that. It absolutely
it
needed that.
And
if we had 10 episodes of Dalek, or 13 episodes of Dalek, the Daleks presented as a single-minded killing machine with lots of psychology behind it. Yeah, the kids would have switched off. We needed to see millions of them blasting through space in their flying saucer, literally just shooting the crap out of everything.
And it was brilliant doing it like that, and making the Cybermen, you can do it in the playground and stuff.
Really, good. See that
noise they make.
Not bad.
But whereas Moffat made things a bit, darker and a bit more kind of adult, as the viewers have grown up a little bit, and then the same with Chibnall. The people were, we were all younger, of course, watching RTD, and now we're older, and Daleks flying around en masse repeatedly is not the spectacle that it's
a lot of fun.
15 years ago.
It's a lot of fun.
Got that great shot in Resolution of the Daleks, where they're all flying around the TARDIS and
Revolution.
Revolution of the Daleks is the second one.
Which is very similar to Doomsday, isn't it? It's in that respect, and they all kind of get sucked into the TARDIS. They fly into the TARDIS, and I disliked that as much as I disliked the Doomsday thing. I just, but that's only a personal thing. It's just not for me. It's just not why. I'm not a massive fan. I'm going to probably, if I've got any friends left, I'm probably going to lose them all now. But I wasn't a massive fan of what's it called? Journey's End. Right,
I really liked that.
I know you did, and Freya loves it as well. And I remember the both of us when she first watched that, and I'd seen it a couple of times. I'm like, oh god, here we go. She was literally jumping, punching the air. She loved it when all the characters came back. With Sarah Jane and Luke in the TARDIS and Donna, the Donna Doctor thing, and again that whole thing in the second episode where it just escalates into this magnificent, joyous explosion of colour and light and Daleks.
It's brilliant. It was such a
I didn't like it, but I watched her enjoy, and I thought, my God, that's what it's all about. That's what it's about there.
Yeah, that's it. That's what people need to try to remember. And I'm not. I feel like you have to preface everything with a disclaimer. I'm not telling anyone how to live their life, but the kids will love that.
Yeah.
Journey's End and everything was, a culmination of that era of the show, and it, like you said, it was joyous.
It celebrated that era of the show, didn't it?
It did celebrate it, and like I really liked Davros in it. But then as I was, that little bit older, when they did Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, I really liked the interpretation of Davros in there.
Much darker confrontation.
It was darker, and I wish that Chibs had a go at him, because I would have really.
I think he would have done good, actually.
Chibs, I think he would have done, yeah.
Chibs is very good, and I think I've said this before on social and on the podcast. I feel Chibs is incredibly good at pulling out the nastiness from humanity itself, and Davros kind of represents that, as always represent that in ultra distilled form. And I think Chibs playing around with that idea, given his whole kind of penchant for the sort of contemporary thrillers like Broadchurch and things that he writes, would have done looking at Ashad even, who is a really good actual, almost like a sort of Davros-like, it's obviously Chibs' own creation, but that pure essence of human evil, he killed his own children, right? Laughed as they died. You don't get that in Doctor Who, right? And I think if we could have seen that with Davros, knowing what Davros represents, it would have been really something. My personal take is I kind of think, I do think actually Chris Chibnall did the best with all three. For me personally, I think he was able to sort of take the kind of joyous excesses of Russell T Davies. I think he took the kind of the more introspective or more interrogative aspect that came through with Moffat, but actually do his own spin on things as well. Take those things a little bit further. And we saw a much more maniacal master. We saw Daleks that we hadn't seen before. We saw the Dalek mutant as something itself that was itself deadly, which we hadn't seen before. We got Ashad in the Cybermen, and I think you could probably argue that Ashad actually isn't really a Cyberman, because he's actually got emotions and everything else. But actually, the fact that here's a psychotic human being who wants to be a Cyberman is something really disturbing about that. And that idea of the cyborg becoming this kind of monstrous fusion of the worst of humanity and the worst of machine life is really powerful. Tying that into the Frankenstein myth, I thought was absolutely legend.
So clever.
I think with the Cyberman in Moffat, we didn't really get much. I think they had some superpowers in Nightmare in Silver that we never saw again. The AI thing was quite nice, but I just want to close with saying that the Daleks under Moffat I thought were also good, and because Moffat seemed to want to get into the psychology of Daleks. We literally have in the 12th Doctor particularly Into the Dalek, right, where the 12th Doctor shrunk down and thrust into the Dalek. We have Magician's Apprentice, where there's that whole thing with Davros going on, and actually before that we have Asylum of the Daleks. So each of those three stories interrogate the psychology of a Dalek. We have Clara Oswald, Oswin Oswald, right, the first time we see her. Actually she is a Dalek, and that's the first time we've ever seen a Dalek from a Dalek's point of view, who doesn't know they're a Dalek, right, is living out his kind of fantasy world, because it's the only way they can exist and rationalise what they do. And maybe they don't see all of what they do. We've never seen that before. We also get, at the end of The Magician's Apprentice, Clara back inside the Dalek, which is a nice kind of bookend to that part of the story, right? But it's actually Clara, actually in a Dalek, and what she says, what she expresses, can't be expressed properly in the Dalek machine's limited vocabulary. And I love that. I think that was brilliant. So for me, that plus Chibnall's takes on things, it's a little bit more adult than just having these things flying around shooting the crap out of each other and exchanging pithy comments, for me personally.
No, well, we'll move on to our last hot take in a minute, but I think RTD's Daleks, they've all done them well.
Yes, they brought out different aspects of them, haven't they? Because they were like that in the old series as well, to a degree.
Yes. And we put this question out there. This wasn't intended to be showrunner v showrunner, because that's
I'll leave that to the people in the replies. That's down to them.
We don't need to do that. But these characters, the villains, all of them, they have parameters that they work within. but things need to be developed and try new things to keep it fresh and interesting.
Oh,
Spider-Man,
definitely, yeah.
You know, Spider-Man in the comics has gone through so many different things and you know, changes to keep it interesting over the years. Same with Cap and becoming Nomad and you know all this sort of stuff.
Are these Marvel characters, Jeff?
These are Marvel characters because you can't. I don't want to see them all the same each time. I don't want to say, well, you know, RTD did this with them, but Moffat didn't, so therefore he didn't do it as well. That's not how it works for me. They all did good things with them, but it comes down to your personal taste for them. So I liked RTD's kind of, you know, whiz bang explosions, rushing around in the playground kind of fun with the Daleks, and I really liked
that is massive.
You know,
that aspect.
the lone Dalek episode, which is just amazing. And I really like what Chibnall did with them. I like that they weren't overused in his era, and I like that we had the mutant, like you said, on its own, still dangerous, getting out and about, and then making its own casing, which paralleled 13 making her own Sonic and everything, and being an unstoppable killing machine, the Dalek, not the Doctor and her Sonic. And then I liked the revolution of the Daleks with the two factions fighting and stuff like that. And you know, Moffat did really good stuff with them as well. I didn't dislike them at all, but you know, I kind of leaned towards Chibnall's version. Cybermen, same. I like Chibnall's stuff. I liked the design of RTDs. They were kind of Art Deco looking with the suits and stuff. I didn't like Moffat stuff particularly because I felt they were really derivative looking of kind of the Iron Man suit.
I think they kind of became more robotic, didn't they?
They did. They lost sort of what made them and there was elements with RTD kind of keeping that there. You remember they find a Cyberman lying in Ten and Rose find one lying in a corridor somewhere, and it's a woman, and she's supposed to be going to a wedding day. It's just, oh god, it's awful that bit. You know, it's so heartbreaking. Yeah. And then, you know, with a Shad, they really kind of played up that stuff.
But again, I mean, Age of Steel was. I mean, its genesis was in a Big Finish story, wasn't it? Mark Platt's Spare Parts and Toby Whithouse. I'm not sure if he actually listened to it or not, but eventually it kind of became his own thing anyway, his own kind of take. It became its own separate kind of genesis story for that. And, you know, so, but again, you see, that again, I attribute to Toby Whithouse, right? You know, that Age of Steel and, is it Age of Steel and, what's the other one called? Rise of the Cybermen, duh. That's what it is. It's been a while. When you think about I know it is, isn't it? You know, that for me is Toby, not so much Russell T Davies. Russell T Davies' Cybermen for me are what we see in Doomsday, and they sort of in after that. It's been a while now. I honestly can't remember, but
they're
in
there.
A few Tennant episodes, a few more Tennant, were they? No, I don't think they were actually.
No, I think it was only that. And then
I think it was only Doomsday, wasn't it? When they're fighting the Daleks, which, as I said, you know, wasn't massively interesting to me particularly.
I remember the shock of that cliffhanger when the void thing opens and the Daleks come out.
Yeah, it was. I remember that actually. Yeah.
Oh, so good, and the brilliance. You know, we've talked about this before, but of keeping secrets. You know, if you knew through leaked set photos or teasers or whatever that the Daleks were coming back, that moment would have been lost completely.
Been ruined. Spoiled fire.
And the same with Rose coming back in series 4. You know, they kept that bit where she throws the keys in the bin or whatever it is with Donna out of the press previews. And only dropped it in like the night before transmission or something.
Yeah, make sure they stick it back in.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. You know, to keep that secret. And I know people feel the Chibnall era was too secretive, but in my view. It's just my view that pays off for us as viewers because we get so many surprises.
Yes, and also reminds me one thing we haven't said about Stephen Moffat and the Cybermen, because it's just struck me now, is that we got the Mondasian Cybermen.
Oh yeah,
which
there was a lot of love for those versions.
Yeah.
Quite a bit actually. Moffat didn't do them great until.
But in that final, honestly, I think, and I've said it before, but the world enough in time. I was going to say the world is not enough. And I've said that before.
That's a Bond film.
It is. I know exactly. But World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls for me are among. They're just god tier season finales.
Yeah, they are
really just a cracking couple of episodes, and that there is, and right at the heart of it, to have those proto Cybermen and see them sort of change into the Mondasian Cybermen is kind of what Age of Steel didn't quite deliver for me. I love that in spare parts, because we see, or we kind of listen as that whole evolution into full-on Cybermen becomes a thing, but we don't see that world until actually World Enough and Time. The Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel almost like takes that away and gives us something else, which is equal, which is good, but it's not, it's not that kind of real dark, slightly kind of, alt 40s, 50s Bakelite technology that was kind of there in Mark Platt's story,
Yeah.
The screams, and is it Bill? She turns down the volume of the screams so she can't hear it.
Yeah,
in the hospital bed.
Pain.
Yeah, and she can't give them anything. She's just got to turn it down and just ignore it. And that's
horrible.
And the whole setting of that, that design, that again, that sort of slightly alt retro 50s future. Oh man. Yeah, I do love that. So
we should rewatch
that. But the thing is, you're right, Jeff. It's what we all get out of these things. It's what we all prefer, and it's all of these things are as valid as something else, really.
Yeah. Well, this sort of leads us into our next Hornet.
Oh yes. Hornet prodding. This is where we stamped on it. Right, we've already prodded it. We've driven over it with a bulldozer. Yeah. Now we actually set fire to it, to be honest, and just watch it burn.
This might have been Cooper's suggestion as well.
Oh no!
So we
for better or worse.
For better or worse, we asked people what they thought of the time.
Oh my god! Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, so frozen in shock.
Did you just go into a fuge there? Dark place.
We planted our flag in the hill as fans of it. I don't feel like we need to justify why.
No, because we're fans of it. We love it, and that's great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I could. I am now justifying it. I could engage with.
You are further elucidating on what you find so interesting about it.
I liked the way it challenged everything we knew, but also the Doctor knew about herself and how she dealt with that, but ultimately came to realise that it didn't really matter what her background was. It's about who she is now. That not specifically as 13, but all the others, and that's what counts. I think that knowing that it was Chris Chibnall was adopted and it was an adoptee kind of storyline, I think that's very, very personal, and a writer will do things like that metaphor stuff.
Well, it's just drawing on personal experiences, isn't it? Even if it's subconscious, a lot of it. That's where that wellspring comes from.
And I liked that, the Doctor was this lost child. Well, I didn't like that element of it, but you know what I mean. And was taken and experimented on and kind of formed the foundations of Time Lord and Gallifreyan society. I don't feel that makes the Doctor now a god-like being or a chosen one or anything like that. I think it's quite tragic that, that the Doctor... Whoever it was, like the Doctor says, I might have been waiting to be picked up by, you don't know, but you just abducted me and took me. It makes it quite sad, I think, really, that the being that would become the Doctor was taken like that and used like that, and all of this stuff was, based upon it, and the Time Lords were, they altered themselves to put the regeneration effect into them, things, and. I don't feel that it makes the Doctor a god thing. There's no special powers. The child had regenerative abilities as a special power, but that came from wherever the child came from. So do you know what I mean? It was inherent. It was inbuilt, and it was stolen from the Doctor. And I think that it gets around the issues of the limited number of generations, which someone was going to have to do at some point. If
it had kind of been fudged at the end of Matt Smith's series, hadn't it?
It had been a little bit there, but this was kind of gave it a decisive thing. And some people said, it takes away any drama. The Doctor could be killed and just regenerate immediately. Well, yeah, okay.
The Doctor's not going to be killed anyway. So.
We know that's not going to happen.
We know the Doctor's going to regenerate.
And I liked the mystery behind the fugitive Doctor, and the stuff with division and working for that and things, and it wasn't sort of solidly answered, but again I don't need it to be. The fugitive Doctor is it's out there, it's its own incarnation of the Doctor. There's obviously a kind of slightly more, there's more backstory there with the Siege of Atropos. The character of that character of the Doctor is kind of more aggressive, more gung-ho, deliberately in contrast, I think, to 13's persona and the Doctor in general, really. But how was the TARDIS, the TARDIS at the phone box at that point? Well, for me personally, I don't. The bigger picture is of interest. I don't think I need to have it filled in. Between. The first Doctor stealing it and it becoming a phone box. It was obvious that the Time Lords wiped the memories of the Doctor. So, when you see all the stuff as the police officer, so what's to say that, the first Doctor hadn't had his memories wiped and, lived out his days in Time Lord society, becoming older, because we know that the Doctor can age, and then the thought, I've had enough of this, I'm doing a runner. It doesn't change anything about the character of the Doctor being someone who's, given up on that society and run away to do good, and being disgusted at what the Time Lords are doing. I think you have to kind of look at it like, you've got the timeless child, and then everything that happens with that going into the division and going up to the fugitive Doctor, and then at some point there's a regeneration and a mind wipe again, and then you've got the first Doctor. It doesn't take away William Hartnell being the first Doctor. He was the first Doctor we saw. Chronologically, maybe not, but we also have the Morbius Doctors, where it was hinted at, made clear that there was other incarnations. So, that's my view. I would kind of go with that. I actually think it's one of the cleverest things somebody's done in Doctor Who. It is undoubtedly the most divisive. I'll tell you for why I think it's clever, because on one respect it changes everything, right? Yeah. And this is why one of the reasons so many people are kind of whoa, because I must admit, I once it started becoming clear what the Timeless Child was or could be, it's like, are they really going to go there? Yeah, they went there. Right, I remember.
But here's the thing, right? Hold on, just 1 second, because I think it changes everything, and yet it changes nothing. So it's like the best way to literally throw a boulder in what we think of as the waters, the calm-ish waters of Doctor Who, and actually, have this massive disruption which creates the energy for the story and the drama and the character of the Doctor and everything else. But actually, at the end of it, the water settles back down in the same place. We've still got that lake, but it's all in a slightly different place. So it changes everything, and it changes nothing, and it moves the Doctor on.
Right. What it did was give, and this is what I put in my tweet, but for me, it affected the Doctor in the core by shaking and challenging everything that the character thought they knew about themselves and who they were and all of that, in a way that kind of past events. I was told I was wrong about this, but my kind of take on it is that it affected the Doctor in a way that other stories in the past haven't, to such a massive degree.
And at a foundational level.
The Doctor usually reacts to events and gets involved in them and is a participant, but this was about the Doctor. And the Day of the Doctor was about the Doctor. As Stephen Moffat said, often the stories are about what's going on around the Doctor.
Yeah, I think Russell said something similar, actually.
Yeah, Day of the Doctor was about the Doctor. And it was, but not to the extent that this was. And I really liked that. And like I said, at the end, the Doctor puts the fob watch back in the TARDIS for another time. As with a number of Chibnall's things are not answered. they're left open to interpretation. The 13th Doctor felt, I know who I am, I know what I'm about, I don't need these to define me because I am the Doctor, and that's my role
understands
in the universe.
Because she's been through that process, that upheaval. And asked herself those questions. Now, where we get at the start of Capaldi's, the 12th Doctor's era, we get that question. Am I a good person? The Doctor is starting to be quite interrogative, but for me, I liked it, but I didn't feel like it really came out of anything very much. It's it's an interesting place to take the Doctor in terms of his introspection, but with the 13th Doctor, we get that question being forced upon her from somewhere that she never expected. It is a complete left hook. And
the Doctor as a character doesn't really change in any of it.
And things can't really, to be honest.
No,
for the truth to stay doing what it does.
Yeah, the Doctor needs to be the Doctor in the start of every episode. It's not quite the same. You look at The Simpsons. The Simpsons,
what?
At the start of an episode...
They've forgotten what happened in the last one.
Yeah, exactly.
It is, though, isn't it?
You know what the Simpsons status quo is. The things happen, and then it's reset.
Just reset
Homer is the same as he was 20 years ago, and so is Bart. Whereas in other shows, characters do change and develop. Like a really good example is Wesley in Angel. I always use this, but when Wesley first appeared, he was goofy, clueless, useless, and by the end of his arc, he was a hard as nails badass who took shit from no one, had his throat slashed, and was doing morally questionable things, and he'd gone through all of these things to take him there. But you couldn't do something like that with the Doctor.
You do it with the companions, which is where we've seen it before.
Exactly, the companions need to sort of change and evolve, and it's it's not to the extent like that, with Wesley, for example. But the Doctor largely stays the same. So I liked that the Timeless Child kind of challenged the Doctor and affected the Doctor like that. And they put the fob watch back in. Maybe Chibs will write a book at some point. Maybe someone else will pick it up. Russell destroyed
it's just there, isn't it?
and the Time Lords, and Moffat chose to pick up and kind of run with that, and then he kind of reset it all in Day of the Doctor. He could have reset it in 11th Hour, but he didn't. Yeah. So it's not disrespectful to anyone to do this or whatever. Each showrunner's going to do their own thing with it that they feel is right for their vision of the show, and so. We put this question out there, and geez, it went mad, and I think we kind of expected, some stuff.
We did. I kind of look at it like it's almost like being the England manager. I think being a showrunner sometimes. New England's football manager comes in, wants to build their own team.
No one wants to
do the job. But it's almost like, or even the Prime Minister or whatever. It's the dream job if you're in that field. And it's the one thing you probably aspire to and would love to have, but oh my goodness! On the other hand,
and you think I'm stuck here for 5 years.
you never, like you said, you're never going to please everybody on all the time, or even some of the time. So you're going to have to just be true to your vision and deliver it. Basically, that's all you can do. And whether the fan base divides in their opinion, they're always going to be divided on something anyway.
Yeah, you'll never unite the fan base.
But to be fair. This is, on the one hand, you can see why this is so massive, but on the other hand, it's like it's not actually that massive at all. Why?
I think it's
why
gotten
are
a bit
you
blown out of proportion.
Why are you losing?
And also, everyone's still talking about it after all this time. Conversation about the show.
Hey, we got a lot of hits on our Twitter from it. That's for sure.
And also, we should say that we put the tweet out and it's had 500 and something likes. Which I would assume is people saying, yes, I like it as well.
We agree to some point.
I agree with your view where we've quite clearly said we're fans of it. And there's a lot of people who are quite happy to express their unhappiness with it, and that's absolutely fine. But not so many people prepared to express their happiness with it. And maybe that's because, you get shouted down or they don't want to kind of put themselves out there like that. I don't know. But I take some solace in the fact that there was a large number of likes on that.
Yeah.
And we there was some strong comments, weren't there?
Yeah, there were. I mean, the comments sort of divided into probably around 3 different areas, I think. So yeah, you had those who sort of, agreed with us, and that's always nice. And some of those had their own take on it as well, which was largely positive. And then you had those people who just didn't like it, for whatever reason. They thought they were bored by it. It didn't inspire them.
Like it,
exactly.
And that's all good. I'm interested in why something didn't work for someone else.
But again, it's fine, isn't it? And we've always said on all our socials that we welcome differences of opinion, because then we can have a debate about them.
Yeah.
But as Jeff said, what we don't like is when it's not even a debate. You get a commenter someone replying, tweeting back in, and it is just straightforward abusive. People are going to do that anyway. I would rather they didn't. I'd rather those people kept their thoughts to themselves, but they're not going to. They're going to jump on things, and they're going to react to it, and it is unpleasant. And I do think, given the nature of the Timeless Child, it being an adoption story, the way I look at it is that the Doctor's always been an outsider of some description, and it wasn't really until the sort of Pertwee era that we started to understand a bit more about the civilization that the Doctor came from, and over time it sort of developed and became a much more rich world environment, the whole idea of Gallifrey and the Time Lords. But for the Doctor to be represented as an outsider, even to their own race, is really something. And I think there are many of us who find something in that story to connect to, because it resonates with ourselves. When I found out it was, that Chris Chibnall was adopted, and that's really where that sort of story came from, you can kind of see it, that idea of always being an outsider. And, when I was growing up in school, that's actually the reason why I connected to the Doctor, not because I'm adopted, but because I felt like I didn't really fit in. I was a bit of an outsider. I wasn't really into playing football and stuff like that. I enjoyed a kick about with the ball, but not in the same way as a lot of the other kids were. I was into Star Wars and Doctor Who and Star Trek and stuff like that. And we weren't ever the cool kids. We were the geeky kids. And that's always been the case. And I think the whole Timeless Child kind of took that deeper, took it further into a place that more people could resonate with. Those who are truly, those among us who truly feel alone and who feel in some way, who are vulnerable to some degree. Here's a hero now that we can resonate with, that we can connect to. And the thing is, because that connection is at that level, and it's so deep, and it's so personal, when you get a whole piling of people who come in with their opinions and a lot of the abuse that goes with it. So this is not now the people who just don't like it, whatever. These are the people who are weaponizing their opinions, and it's directed at those people who feel vulnerable, who feel outside of things, who connect to the world through the show because they can see that in the Doctor. And the Doctor gives them this heroic aspect. It's awful. And, social media gives us the platform where anybody can voice their opinions, but it's down to us as individuals to be responsible about how we do that. And, I can be as blunt as anybody else, and I'm not going to cover myself in glory. I've said bad things on Twitter that I probably regretted, but it's...
I think it's just the way the way you go about things, the way you set out to do something, your intention, and what you just said there. People identify with the Doctor and they relate to the Doctor, and some people, have really connected with the 13th Doctor and that storyline, and that's amazing. I love the 13th Doctor more than any Doctor, and the era of the show, really connected with me. And I think, we are, I think, intrinsically, the reason we all watch Doctor Who is because we are probably all a little bit different, a bit of an outsider, a bit of an oddball, and that's the Doctor. And I think, but to dislike the Timeless Child arc or any of the recent era, and to belittle and insult people who like it, I don't think it's right, really, because people have their own connection, their own love for it, and it doesn't mean it's any less important than anyone else's thoughts. I don't know if that's the right sort of thing I'm trying to get at. I just think, you don't like it, it's fine. It doesn't make someone less than you because because they like it. And I think, I've said this before, I don't think it's the way the Doctor would go about things.
No,
it like that,
it doesn't really sort of feel that always try to be kind kind of message, does it?
Yeah,
really?
It feels like the core point of the character was kind of been missed a bit there. But anyway, we put it out. We've kind of said our bit on it, and
I'm glad we did actually.
Well, it's been an interesting experiment.
It has been an interesting social experiment for sure.
And we got some new followers, which we're grateful for. And it's quite. I think I tweeted it was quite a cross section of the fandom.
Yeah, it was, which was nice to see actually.
And I'm sure
and actually in amongst that as well, we did have some pretty good debates. There was a few people I picked out who didn't like the storyline at all, and gave their reasons for why. And we had a few sort of exchanges
on
a polite way.
So many,
in the same way that you and I would talk about Kill the Moon, for example. That sort of thing.
I liked it. You didn't.
Exactly.
You changed my mind on it. But, there were so many comments, we just couldn't keep up with all of it.
No. So if we didn't like or retweet or whatever, apologies for that. We were kind of bombarded a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't put that out on Facebook actually, but not because I didn't have.
I just don't think we
actually because I didn't have time to. I sort of ran out of time with the day job.
We could have handled the. Yeah, I don't think we could have handled the.
No, there would have been a deluge. Yeah.
This has been great chatting about our hot takes here. I'm sure in time we will do some more and. Get people's thoughts on them, but normal service will resume. We're going to do some episode rewatches and reviews again soon, aren't we? And trying to get some more guests on the show. So we will be back very soon to explore the Whoniverse.
Yay!
From corner to corner. Thanks for watching and listening.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time. Bye for now.